The world will be watching as Canada hosts the G7 summit in Alberta beginning this Sunday, hosted by Prime Minister Mark Carney. U.S. President Donald Trump will be attending at a time when he is a force of political disruption. And joining me to discuss all the politics and implications we can expect is Amanda Alvaro, Rutledge and Marion Nader. Let's start with Mark Carney. He's still pretty new on this job. What does he need to do and what pitfalls should he avoid?
So I think there's a few things. I mean, he is completely new, right? He's in his first 100 days in office.
Talk about being thrown into the fire.
I'll say, and then getting to host the G7. This is a big deal. There's some things that you're going to hear this week leading up to the G7. You're going to hear the word security over and over again, right? So peace and security, energy security, really talking about those critical minerals, supply chain, and then also security of new partnerships, securing those new partnerships. And that's why you're seeing some of those players coming in like India, which I'm sure we'll get the chance to talk about. But in the backdrop of all of this is Trump. The chaos that he brings, the fact that the LA protests are still ongoing, and part of the reason why we're talking so much about security is because of the chaos that he's dropped into to sovereignty, to the secure relationships that we have, to the trading partnerships. So he will be the linchpin in how well this goes this weekend.
Definitely. Jeff, what should he avoid?
Well, I think President Trump is certainly going to play his cards. This is a great stage for him to be able to come out and share the message that he's been sharing, which is that it is a new order in the world. And so I think for Prime Minister Carney, his goals and priorities are going to have to be, reaffirming Canada's commitment to an order-based system with our G7 partners. So I suspect that that's what you'll see him work to position to do. He's done his best in advance to kind of address some of the spending issues as it relates to NATO, to try to nip that in the bud before the president can make it an issue. But there are a lot of personalities at the table, and it's going to be a hard task for the Canadians there beyond Prime Minister Carney to be able to manage the message.
Marion, in addition to the G7 leaders, as we've referenced, the Prime Minister of India has been invited. The Mexican president has been invited. Is this a sign to Donald Trump that Canada is willing and will forge its own alliances?
Absolutely. And we understand that the Prime Minister wants to reset the relationship with India, given the geopolitical reasons. It's a troubling message for the community, so he's going to have to thread that needle very carefully. And I think the Prime Minister needs to realize is that when he talks at the G7, it's important to diversify our trade with different nations, but with like-minded nations that respect Canadian sovereignty and Canadian values.
Let's talk about defense spending. I mean, it can't be a coincidence that Carney, for the first time, is saying Canada will meet its 2% target of the GDP. Stephen Harper promised this back in, 2013? I'm going to put you on the spot, Jeff. And, of course, that never happened. But he's saying it will within a year. This can't be a coincidence with the G7 coming and the Trump concerns.
It's really smart politics and credit where credit's due.
Wow, a conservative is I like this.
Which is that, this is the message that they needed to get out and put out in front of the Canadian public. That being said, and it's probably my number one complaint about Liberals over the last 10 years, is they know how to spend money. It's just, do they know how to spend it now and spend it effectively and be able to actually, given the conversation that or your comments just now about our previous commitments to the 2%, can we actually get it done? And will our partners see that play out in actual tactical abilities? Can we follow up on our commitments? This isn't exclusively about building pay raises into the system, but can we actually deliver the goods, the hard goods that our soldiers and members of the armed forces need to do their job?
I'm surprised as a conservative you didn't say, and where's the money coming from? We don't have a budget.
That's actually what I'm going to say. The important thing is, yes, you can defend this important for our, the country's security, but it can't be at the risk of, we also have social and economic needs as well. And so it can't be at risk of the services that people rely on. How is he going to, get this done, and how are we going to pay for it? So is it going to be through healthcare cuts, program cuts, cuts in the public service? It's like you don't go grocery shopping. You know how much you have in the bank, so you know how much to spend. You don't go grocery shopping and spend all the money and then realize how are you going to pay for it afterwards.
Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I think that this is one of the things that he will need to contend with. I think that Canadians have a bigger appetite than they've had before to see this kind of spend right now, given the uncertain times. And I think that the way that it was positioned, this is about rearming training, it's about rebuilding, and it's about reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces, words that I think really matter. It's about the military, but it's also about our ships, our aircraft, our drones. How do we make the Arctic more secure? How do we distance ourselves a little bit from the U.S. and make sure that we're ready to defend ourselves if necessary? Now, he did say they're not going to raise taxes, so they are going to have to make cuts, and that's what Canadians are going to be waiting for.
Right.
Yep.
And Carney did make the point that Canada cannot rely on the U.S.
Absolutely.
Okay, more to come. Thank you so very much for joining us. Fascinating conversation.
Absolutely.